نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. ما بعد. Today is Sunday 26th Rabi al-Awwal 1446, corresponding to September 29th 2024. Today inshallah we'll explain page 448 from Surah Saffat, chapter 37. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. فأقبل بعضهم على بعض يتساءلون قال قائل منهم إني كان لي قرين يقول إنك لمن المصدقين أإذا متنا كنا ترابا وعظاما أإنا لمدينون قال هل أنتم مطلعون فاطلع فرآه في سواء الجحيم قال تالله إن كدت لترضين ولولا نعمة ربي لكنت من المحضرين أفما نحن بميتين إلا موتتنا الأولى وما نحن بمعذبين إن هذا لهو الفوز العظيم لمثل هذا فليعمل العاملون. The gathering of the people of paradise and the exchange between one of them and his counterpart in hell, and his gratitude for the blessing of Allah because he ended up in paradise and not with his counterpart in hell. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here, فَأَقْبَلَ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. Then they will turn to one another mutually questioning. This is in paradise. Allah tells us how the people of paradise will turn to one another, asking one another about their situation, how they were in this world and what they suffered, because obviously paradise is attained through patience. This world is made with many sufferings, and a person has to have patience in order for him to be able to attain the final abode of paradise. And this is part of their conversation when they get together to converse and drink. So in paradise, people of paradise, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us and our progenies and all the Muslims among them, gather and they have conversations, they drink, they remember the worldly life, things they did in this world. They're having fun. They are in the bliss of paradise and their Lord is happy with them. Sitting on their thrones, servants coming and going, any fruit that they want, they just wish for it. The tree brings its fruit all the way to the person's hand so that he can pick it up. And they have all kinds of good food, drink, clothes, and other delights that no eye has seen and no ear has heard. Never haven't comprehended the true essence of what's in paradise. So the mind of man can't really comprehend the true essence of the bliss of paradise. We explain things by what we know from the pleasures of this world, but the pleasure of paradise is unparalleled. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَالَ قَائِلٌ مِّنْهُمْ إِنِّي كَانَ لِي قَرِينٌ. A speaker of these people of paradise will say, verily, I had a companion. So here he's remembering a companion he had in this dunya. And also reported that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma said, this refers to an idolater man who had a companion among the believers in this world. يَقُولُ إِنَّكَ لَمِنَ الْمُصَدِّقِينَ. So this idolater used to tell his believing friend in this world, are you among those who believe? That means you believe in the resurrection after death and the reckoning and the reward or punishment. So he used to say that by way of astonishment, disbelief, and stubbornness. So he's kind of like looking down at him. He's like, you believe in this nonsense. I mean, these are tales of the old. This is how the disbelievers usually act today when they have friends who are believers. They try to mock them. They try to introduce doubt into their creed. That's why a believer should not take a disbeliever or an evildoer as a friend, lest he pulls him down to that evil level that the disbeliever or the evildoer is in. أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا وَعِظَامًا أَإِنَّا لَمَدِينُونَ. So this ayah letter tells his believing companion, when we die and become dust and bones, shall we indeed be indebted for our deeds? Madinun, Mujahid, and As-Suddi said, brought to account for our deeds. Because they said, إِنْ هِيَ إِلَّا حَيَاتُنَا الدُّنْيَا نَمُوتُ وَنَحْيَا وَمَا نَحْنُ بِمُعَذَّبِينَ. It's only our worldly life. We live and then we die, and no punishment is going to touch us. So they believe that they were created in vain. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا. Did you think that we created you in vain? You just live and die and no reckoning? This would be jest and play, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may He be exalted, is far above that. Ibn Abbas, pleased with him, and Muhammad bin Ka'b al-Qurazi said, rewarded or punished according to our deeds. Both views are correct. So this disbeliever, this idolater, denied the day of punishment, day of reckoning. So the believer now is speaking, saying, قَالَ هَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُطَّلِعُونَ فَاطَّلَعَ فَرَآهُ فِي سَوَاءِ الْجَحِيمِ. So the believer speaking in paradise will tell his companions in paradise, will you look down at hell? You look over, so which means that the people of paradise can look over and look at the people being punished in hell, and that's actually an increase in their pleasure, because many of these believers were killed, were tortured by those in hellfire. So when they look at them from paradise and see that they are being punished, that's soothing to their hearts, because justice has been done, retribution has been done, payback was achieved. Because in this dunya, many people that die unjustly, their perpetrator goes unpunished, goes on living happily, but in the hereafter he will pay the price. So when they will look at their oppressor in hellfire, that'll be more soothing to them, because they know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala avenged them and punished those that used to oppress them in this world. So they will look over, and the believer will say to his companion among the people of paradise, the believer will say this to his companions among the people of paradise. He's going to tell them to look down so that he can show them this idolater that used to deny resurrection, who's being punished in hellfire. So he looked down and saw him in the midst of the fire. Now a person is going to ask, well, the fire is so huge, there are billions of people there, how is he going to be able to see him? How is he going to find him? Look, in paradise, whatever you wish for, Allah brings it to you. So you want to look at someone, Allah will make you be able to see him. Just like if you had a personal camera for every person, and as soon as you think about a person, you see it in front of you. This is easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he looked down and saw him in the midst of the fire. Ibn Abbas, pleased with him, Sa'id ibn Jubair, Khulayd al-Ushari, Qatada, As-Suddi, and Ata al-Khurasani said, this means in the middle of hell. So he saw him in the middle of hell. Al-Hasan al-Basri said, in the middle of hell, as if he were a burning star. قَالَ تَاللَّهِ إِن كِدتَّ لَتُرْضِينَ. He said, the believer told the disbeliever, companion, by Allah, you have nearly ruined me. The believer will say, addressing the disbeliever, by Allah, you nearly caused me to be doomed if I had obeyed you. So you see, the disbeliever was calling the believer to disbelief, and he was trying to put doubt in his creed of resurrection and accounting. وَلَوْلَا نِعْمَةُ رَبِّي لَكُنْتَ مِنَ الْمُحْضَرِينَ. So the believer says, had it not been for the grace of my Lord, I would certainly have been among those who were brought forth to hell. Meaning, were it not for the favor of my Lord towards me, I would have been like you in the middle of the hell, the same way that you are, brought forth with you for punishment. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed His grace upon me, had mercy upon me, and guided me to faith and to belief in Him alone. وَمَا كُنَّا لِنَهْتَدِيَ لَوْلَا أَنْ هَدَانَا اللَّهُ. Similarly, the people of paradise, as Allah recounts and tells us in Surah Al-A'raf, and never could we have found guidance were it not that Allah had guided us. أَفَمَا نَحْنُ بِمَيِّتِينَ إِلَّا مَوْتَتَنَا الْأُولَى وَمَا نَحْنُ بِمُعَذَّبِينَ. Are we then not to die anymore, except our first death, as we shall not be punished? Is what the disbeliever was saying. The disbeliever was saying that we're only going to die once, and there's going to be no punishment. So the believer, by way of rebuke, will tell the disbeliever that. So he's going to tell him that you used to claim that we're not going to die once and it's going to be the punishment. So this is what the believers will say when they feel joy at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them and they realize that they are to remain in paradise forever and ever with no punishment and no death to come. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about that state, إِنَّ هَذَا لَهُوَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. Surely this is the supreme success. Al-Hasan al-Basri said, they know that death brings an end to every delight. So they will say, أفما نحن بميتين إلا موتتنا الأولى وما نحن بمعذبين. Are we then not to die except our first death and we shall not be punished as you claimed, O disbelievers? It will be said, no. إن هذا لهو الفوز العظيم. No, truly this is the supreme success. That means you will die your first death, but you will be resurrected, you will be brought to account, and then after that, paradise forever or hell forever at the end. لمثل هذا فليعمل العاملون. For the lack of this, for this beautiful final abode of paradise, let the workers work. Ibn Jarir said, these are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It means, for the lack of this pleasure that Allah has bestowed on the people of paradise and the success, let the workers work in this world so that they may attain it in the hereafter. It's also said that this was revealed about two Israelites, the story of two men among the children of Israel. This is when the children of Israel were the Muslims of the time, unlike now, where they are the disbelievers and the killers and the tyrants, people that were act with impunity in the world, killing children, women, and breaking every single law in the book. May Allah curse them and curse the hypocrites who are supporting them. So these two Israelites were partners and were included in the meaning of this ayah. Abu Ja'far bin Jarir recorded that Furat, the Tha'laba al-Bahrani, said concerning this ayah, إِنِّي كَانَ قَرِينٌ, for I had a companion. There were two men who were partners and had collected 8,000 dinars. So they were partners. And one of them had a craft, so he was able to do things, and the other one did not. So the one who had a craft basically told the other, you do not have a craft, so I think I will divide the money with you and leave you. So he left him. So he divided the money, each one got 4,000 dinars. Then the man bought a house belonging to a king who had died for the price of 1,000 dinars. So it was a huge house. He called his companion, whom he parted ways with, and showed him the house, saying, what do you think of this house that I bought for 1,000 dinars? So his companion said, how beautiful it is. Then he went out and said, oh Allah, this companion of mine has bought this house for 1,000 dinars. It's beautiful. I asked you for one of the houses of paradise, and he gave 1,000 dinars in charity. So basically, he bought this house in paradise for 1,000 dinars, the same way that his previous partner bought a house in this dunya for 1,000 dinars. Then as much time passes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed should pass. The first man married a woman with a dowry of 1,000 dinars and invited his companion and made food for him. When he came, he said, I have married this woman with a dowry of 1,000 dinars. So he replied, how beautiful this is. And when he left, he said, oh Lord, my companion has married a woman with a dowry of 1,000 dinars. I ask you for a wife from among al-Hur al-Ain. And he gave 1,000 dinars in charity. Then, as much time passes, Allah will should pass. Then the first brought two his companion and showed them to him, and he said, I have bought these two gardens for 2,000 dinars. So his previous partner said, how beautiful this is. When he came out, he said, oh Lord, my companion has bought two gardens for 2,000 dinars. I asked you for two gardens in paradise, and he gave 2,000 dinars in charity. Then the angel of death came to both of them and took their souls in death. So he took the one who had given his money in charity and put him in a house that this person liked. There was a woman who was so beautiful that the ground shinned under her. Then he, the angel, took the man to two gardens and gave him other things which are known only to Allah. So basically, whatever he wanted from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was given. And the man said, this is like a man who has such and such, that means your previous partner. So the man who was in paradise said that this house and this beautiful woman and these two gardens are like my previous partner. So the angel said, That's exactly what it is. This house, these gardens, and this wife are all for you. The man said, I had a companion who used to say, are you among those who believe? So basically, the first partner who bought a house, two gardens, and married the wife for the 4,000 dinars was a disbeliever, did not believe in resurrection. So his previous partner, it was said to him, he is in hell. He is in hell. He said, will you look down? So he looked down and saw him in the midst of hell. So at this he said, قال تالله إن كدت لترضين ولولا نعمة ربي لكنت من المحضرين. By Allah, you have nearly ruined me. Had it not been for the grace of my Lord, I would certainly have been among those brought forth. Because obviously, sometimes a believer may be uh, may have his faith shaken and some doubts instilled by shaitan in his heart when he sees the luxury that the disbelievers are living in outwardly anyway, at least outwardly in this dunya. So he starts asking himself, or not really him, it's shaitan who's whispering to him, well, how can these be disbelievers when they have all this power, all this wealth? Maybe you are not correct in thinking that that they are a disbeliever and they're a believer. So this is something that shaitan throws in the heart of a Muslim, and actually had this question uh, posed to me directly. A brother, a Muslim, says, why do the kuffar have beautiful land, beautiful scenery, a lot of money, when they are disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So, of course, the answer is very simple. As Allah says in the Quran, they are being two things. Number one, they are being paid back for their good deeds in this world. As Allah says, قَالَ أَذْهَبْتُمْ طَيِّبَاتِكُمْ فِي حَيَاتِكُمُ الدُّنْيَا وَاسْتَمْتَعْتُمْ بِهَا. You have spent your good deeds in this worldly life and you have enjoyed it. And number two is that the disbelieving countries that are wealthy are only disbelieving countries who are plundering the wealth of the Muslims, and the Muslims not fighting back against these disbelievers. So you look at, as an example, South America, from Mexico all the way down. These are not advanced countries. So you have the U.S., Canada, because we know the U.S. is plundering the resources of the Muslims in the Middle East, etc. You have France, Germany, Spain, these countries that had invaded the Muslims in other parts of Africa. They are still plundering the resources of these countries. So they are rich because of our resources and because we have accepted the status quo and we are not fighting back to liberate us from the disbelievers who are ruling us in the name of the real disbelievers. So you have the hypocrites, who are ruling us in the name of the disbelievers. And because we accepted the status quo, we're living in humiliation. Once we decide to fight back and get our independence from the hypocrites who are ruling us in the name of the disbelievers, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will change our state and we will be richer than the disbelievers. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ نُزُلًا أَمْ شَجَرَةُ الزَّقُّومِ إِنَّا جَعَلْنَاهَا فِتْنَةً لِلظَّالِمِينَ إِنَّهَا شَجَرَةٌ تَخْرُجُ فِي أَصْلِ الْجَحِيمِ طلعها كأنه رؤوس الشياطين فإنهم لآكلون منها فمالئون منها البطون ثم إن لهم عليها لشوبا من حميم ثم إن مرجعهم لإلى الجحيم إنهم ألفوا آباءهم ضالين فهم على آثارهم يهرعون. The tree of Zaqum and his companions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ نُزُلًا أَمْ شَجَرَةُ الزَّقُّومِ. Is paradise better entertainment or the tree of Zaqum? Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks, of course, it's a rhetorical question because the answer is clear. Paradise is better. So Allah asks, is that which He subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned of the delights of paradise with its food, drink, companions, and other joys better entertainment, or the tree of Zaqum which is in hell? The meaning here is a specific kind of tree which is called zaqum. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, which one would you prefer? All the enjoyments and delights of paradise, or eating from this tree of zaqum? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will explain to us what is Shajarat al-Zaqum, what is tree of Zaqum. It's also mentioned in Surat al-Mu'minun, وَشَجَرَةً تَخْرُجُ مِن طُورِ سَيْنَاءَ تَنبُتُ بِالدُّهْنِ وَصِبْغٍ لِلْآكِلِينَ. And a tree, this is the olive tree, and a tree that springs forth from Mount Sinai, that grows, produces oil, and it is a relish for the eaters. And this is the olive tree. So Allah here tells us that is telling us that the olive trees originated from the Sinai, from Mount Sinai, which is in today's Egypt, and then after that it spread to other parts of the world. And we know that it's the Muslims that brought the olive tree to Spain. This is supported by the ayah back here to Shajarat al-Zaqum. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that the olive tree springs forth from Mount Sinai, because as we will see, Shajarat al-Zaqum springs forth from hellfire. So olive tree springs forth from a mountain in this world, and Shajarat al-Zaqum springs forth from hellfire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ثُمَّ إِنَّكُمْ أَيُّهَا الضَّالُّونَ الْمُكَذِّبُونَ لَآكِلُونَ مِن شَجَرٍ مِّن زَقُّومٍ. Then moreover, verily you, the erring ones, the deniers of the hereafter and the resurrection, you verily will eat from the trees of Zaqum. This tree of Zaqum, Allah said that He has made it as a trial for the wrongdoers. إِنَّا جَعَلْنَاهُ فِتْنَةً لِلظَّالِمِينَ. A trial here means punishment. So fitna can mean trial, can mean punishment, can mean test. The tree of Zaqum is mentioned as a test and actually as a punishment for those who are misguided. So it's not a test, it's a punishment, because there's no testing in hellfire. So they said, your companion tells you that in the fire there is a tree, but fire consumes tree. Oh, okay, so here is a test for the misguided in this world. So Shajarat al-Zaqum is mentioned as a test for those who are misguided in this world, because when Allah says that the tree of Zaqum springs forth from hellfire, they're going to say, oh, but fire consumes trees. Because according to their limited understanding, they think that because their qualities and abilities are limited, Allah's abilities are also limited. That's not the case. Allah can create anything, anywhere, however He wants, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered them, says, it is a tree that springs out from the bottom of hellfire. So this tree actually is fed by the fire. It is nourished by the fire. So this is a different kind of tree. It's not like the trees that you know in this world that need water to survive. This tree needs hellfire to survive. إِنَّهَا شَجَرَةٌ تَخْرُجُ فِي أَصْلِ الْجَحِيمِ. Mujahid said that this ayah, إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا فِتْنَةً لِلظَّالِمِينَ, truly have made it as a trial for the wrongdoers, because Abu Jahl, may Allah curse him, said, Zaqum means dates and butter, which I eat at Zaqamuh. So Allah is threatening them that they will eat from the tree of Zaqum in hellfire, and Abu Jahl is saying, oh, Zaqum, that is good. If I'm going to be... So he's mocking the ayah. So he's saying, I like Zaqum, because Zaqum is dates and butter. Ibn Kathir says the meaning of the ayah is, we have told you, O Muhammad ﷺ, about the tree of Zaqum as a trial with which we test the people to see who will believe and who will disbelieve. Because belief here is based on the unseen. So if Allah tells you that there is a tree that grows in the hellfire, even though you may not understand it or comprehend it, you have to believe in it. And that's the test. And this is like the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Isra, and we made not the vision which we showed you except a trial for mankind, and the accursed tree of the Zaqum in the Quran. This is also a test for mankind. We warn and make them afraid, but it only increases them in naught except great disbelief. So the more Allah sends them punishments and warnings like earthquakes, like floods, etc., instead of them repenting to Allah and doing away with the polytheism and the evil they're doing in those countries, they increase in disbelief, oppression, and disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وما جعلنا الرؤيا التي أريناك إلا فتنة للناس والشجرة الملعونة في القرآن ونخوفهم فما يزيدهم إلا طغيانا كبيرا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues about Shajarat al-Zaqum, says that verily it is a tree that springs out of the bottom of hellfire. It means its roots grow at the bottom of hell. It's a tree, a special tree, different one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created as such. إنها شجرة تخرج في أصل الجحيم طلعها كأنه رؤوس الشياطين. The shoots of its fruit, the shoots of its fruit stalks are like the heads of shayateen. So this is the description of how ugly and repulsive this tree is. It is likened to also shayateen, the heads of the shayateen, because even though they have never seen the shayateen, it is the well-known and established idea in people's minds that devils are ugly in appearance. So when it says that the fruits are as ugly as the heads of the shayateen, then we can imagine that it's a very ugly looking fruit. فإنهم لآكلون منها فمالئون منها البطون. Sure, they will eat thereof and fill their bellies from it. Allah mentioned that the disbelievers in hellfire will eat from this extremely ugly tree, even though its fruits tastes and smells so bad. They will be forced to eat from it because they will not find anything else to eat except this tree. And similar things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَيْسَ لَهُمْ طَعَامٌ إِلَّا مِنْ ضَرِيعٍ. No food will there be for them except the poisonous thorny plant. لا يسمن ولا يغني من الجوع, which will neither nourish them nor avail against hunger. So they eat from it, they suffer while eating, and yet this poisonous thorny plant will neither nourish them nor avail them against hunger. ثم إن لهم عليها لشوبا من حميم. Then on top of that, after they eat from these fruits, they will feel thirst. So when they would want to drink, they will be given boiling hamim. Ibn Abbas said, this means they will be given boiling hamim to drink after they have eaten from the zaqum. According to another report, he said that this means a mixture made from boiling water. So hamim is a mixture made from boiling water. This is one explanation. Someone else said that it means boiling water would be mixed with pus and offensive discharges that leak from the private parts and eyes of the disbelievers. So all these things will be mixed with boiling water and given to the disbelievers to drink. Ibn Abi Hatim recorded that Sa'id bin Jubair said, when the people of hell get hungry, they will ask for food from the tree of Zaqum. They will eat from it. Then the skin of their faces will fall off. When they will eat from this tree of Zaqum, the skins of their faces will fall off. Then, if someone were to pass by them, he would recognize them, even though they only have flesh on their faces with no skins. Then thirst will be sent upon them. They will feel thirsty. So they will ask to be given something to drink. And they will be given something, but it's going to be water that's like boiling oil that has been heated to the ultimate degree. So when they bring this boiling water near their mouths, the flesh of their faces, because the skins already fell off, the flesh of their faces from which the skin has fallen off will be baked by the heat of this water. And whatever is in their stomachs will melt. So when they will drink this water, فَقَطَّعَ أَمْعَاءَهُمْ, as Allah says in Surah Muhammad, وَسُقُوا مَاءً حَمِيمًا فَقَطَّعَ أَمْعَاءَهُم. Their intestines will be torn, and whatever is in their stomachs will melt. They will walk with their guts swollen out, with their skin falling off, and they will be beaten with hooked rods of iron. Seek refuge with Allah from these punishments. Then every part of their bodies will burst into loud lamentations. Every single part of their bodies will suffer, will cry from pain. ثم إن مرجعهم لإلى الجحيم. Then thereafter, their return is to the flaming fire of hell. Meaning after that interval, when they go so that they can eat and drink, they will be sent back to the burning fire. So seemingly the place for punishment is in a place, and then when they feel hungry, they are sent to this tree of zakum to eat from, and then that's where they eat from it and drink from it, and they experience suffering during that process. And then after that, they go back to their places of punishment in the hellfire. So they will rotate between the place of punishment and between the place of eating shajarat al-zaqum, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surat Ar-Rahman, يَطُوفُونَ بَيْنَهَا وَبَيْنَ حَمِيمٍ آن. They will go between hell, where they are being punished, and the fierce boiling water, where they eat and drink. Qatada recited this ayah when discussing this ayah. This is a good interpretation. Abdullah bin Mas'ud recited it differently, with the meaning that their return is in the afternoon, meaning they will go in the morning to eat, they will go back to being punished, and then again in the afternoon they will go to eat once again, and the process continues in circles. Abdullah, may Allah be pleased with him, used to say, by the one in whose hand is my soul, midday on the day of resurrection will not come until the people of paradise will be in paradise, and the people of hell will be in hell. Until he recited the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the dwellers of paradise will on that day have the best abode, which is paradise, and have the fairest of places for rest and repose. أصحاب الجنة يومئذ خير مستقرا وأحسن مقيلا. Repose. Allah is saying, إنهم ألفوا آباءهم ضالين فهم على آثارهم يهرعون. Verily they found their fathers on the wrong path. Means we will punish them for that because they found their fathers following misguidance, and they followed their fathers in this misguidance with no evidence or proof. So if your father tells you something, then examine the proof that he gives you, whether he tells you this is the truth. So you examine the proof, because once you examine the proof, you'll be responsible for yourself. Allah says, so they too hastened in their footsteps. Mujahid said, this is like the ayah, Mujahid said, this is like running. Sa'id bin Jubayr said, they followed ignorance and foolishness. Because when you call people to goodness, they're usually lazy and slow to respond. But when it comes to disobedience or innovation or musical festivals or any other type of misguidance, they hurry to answer the call. They hurry to answer the call. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ ضَلَّ قَبْلَهُمْ أَكْثَرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا فِيهِمْ مُنذِرِينَ فانظر كيف كان عاقبة المنذرين إلا عباد الله المخلصين. Allah says, وَلَقَدْ ضَلَّ قَبْلَهُمْ أَكْثَرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا فِيهِمْ مُنذِرِينَ. And indeed, most of the earlier ones went astray before them. And indeed, we sent among them warners. Allah tells us that the most of the previous nations went astray. They were worshipping others besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or others with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They worship Allah and worship something else with Him. He subhanahu wa ta'ala states that He sent among them, among these nations, warners to alert them to the anger, wrath, and vengeance of Allah towards those who disbelieve in Him and worship others besides Him. He tells us that they persisted in their opposition to their messengers and their disbelief in them. So He subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed those who disbelieved in Him and saved the believers and caused them to prevail. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save the believers in the Middle East, Lebanon, in Yemen, in Palestine, in Syria, Iraq, and destroy the Jews and all those who help them among the hypocrites and the disbelievers. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take vengeance on the disbelievers and the hypocrites who are helping them, who are protecting them. May Allah curse them in this world and in the hereafter. and destroy them and give them a humiliating death in this world as a just recompense for defending the enemies of Allah against the Mujahideen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَانظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُنذَرِينَ إِلَّا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. Then see what was the end of those who were warned, except the chosen servants of Allah. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among them, among the chosen servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is it for today. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us the beneficial knowledge, save us from all trials and tribulations, bless us on our children and our families and our provisions. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring back the Muslims to their true path, especially the youth among them. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on the martyrs in this war of aggression by the Jews and hypocrites and disbelievers on our brothers in the Middle East. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them steadfastness and to give the martyrs among them the highest prayers for Firdaus. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to destroy the Jews and destroy the hypocrites who are helping them and destroy the disbelievers who are helping them. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase the might of the Jews amongst one another, and the disbelievers amongst one another, and the hypocrites amongst one another. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify the blessed land of Palestine from the filth of disbelief and hypocrisy, and to bring back the Khilafah to it, with Jerusalem being its capital, as He subhanahu wa ta'ala promised us through the tongue of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And finally, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to gather us with Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam in the highest place for Firdaus. آخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وجزاكم الله خيرا brothers.
جزاك الله خير.